Hello everybody and welcome to this week's episode of Yo Pops, the podcast with me, Sean Williams, and my father. Dad, say hi.
Hi.
We hope everybody's okay and you enjoyed last week's episode of Inside Out. The review was really good. I really enjoyed that. I thought you were very good.
Thank you.
It's all good, Dad. You know, sometimes I can give you a compliment.
I thought that was excellent, actually.
We can upgrade you to excellent if you want your review to say.
Yeah, yes, and fantastic as well.
Fantastic. Please let us know in the comments if you thought that my dad was excellent and fantastic. We'll let the people at home decide.
Okay.
Also, we wanted to say thank you for everybody that's subscribing and liking and sharing. I've had 3 amazing interactions this week. Three of them in the gym. I had one guy come up to me and say, "I've seen your dad on TikTok, he's amazing. I love watching him." I was just like, "Yes, Dad. I also had another person say to me that they were they've set out some time this evening, setting up their laptop, having their dinner so that they can watch the YouTube version.
Okay.
So I stopped and I said, no, it came out yesterday. He goes, "I was doing a late shift yesterday. I couldn't watch it, so I needed to have my time and my space." I was just like, "Brother, do not let me get in the way. Do what you're doing." And this was the best one. I saw the gym manager, who's also hopefully going to become your personal trainer.
Right.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah. Are you hinting at something?
I'm not hinting at anything.
You sure? I mean, I don't know how comes, your manager comes into it so quickly.
My who?
Yeah, he's going to be your manager, you know what I mean?
No, he's the gym manager and he's going to be your personal trainer.
Okay, that's good.
What did you think I said?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm just making sure.
You seem a little triggered by that. I was just like, "Wait there, Dad. I'm not saying anything. I just want you to live. I just want you to live."
You see, gym is the two sides of pain and pleasure.
Oh, this feels good. Go on.
Oh,
No, because I was doing... No. You're flowing.
Yeah,
Go on, River. Flow. Flow, River. Flow.
Yeah, see, pain and pleasure.
Pain and pleasure. How so?
Because, you go through the pain to get to the pleasure of being fit, buff, and all of that.
So do you not fancy the pain?
The pain never nice but necessary.
Pain
unless you're masochistic, you know what I mean?
Pain is never nice, but it's necessary.
Especially when you're trying to get to your goal. So that's what sometimes is a deterrent. For some people, they don't want to go through the pain. They're always locked into the pleasure. But when it comes to the pain, it's like, no.
And I guess that actually weeds out those that deserve the end result and those that don't.
Indeed.
How can you have one without the other?
Absolutely.
Especially when it's proofing and processing. That was good. You got me. I was off guard with that. I wasn't ready.
I'm getting better, trust me.
Yes, you are. But as we were just saying, thank you for everybody that's been liking, sharing, subscribing. Please continue to do so. Also...
Actually, you didn't finish about the guy in the gym.
Well, you seem triggered by it, so why am I going to come and keep traumatizing you? What do you want me to do?
I want to hear the end result of what he said. Yeah.
So, I said to him, the YouTube version came out yesterday. Watch it. And he was just like, "Can I be honest?" I was like, "Of course you can." He goes, "I like to listen to it in the car. It's just that perfect time just to lock in. It's completely quiet." And I was just like, "Scott, yes. Yes." So, and he actually really loved episode 2.
Yeah.
He loved episode 2 on marriage. And when we spoke yesterday, you told me that you'd had some people that come to you and said that they were really enjoying it.
Yes, I think a lot of people in their response and almost kind of inciting in a subtle way.
Okay.
When are you going to do the next thing on marriage? I'm so I said, okay, I have to speak to the producer and manager. That's you, Chris.
But I think also, and I want everybody to know this at home, what we haven't told you, but you would have maybe guessed if you're up to episode 3, when you alluded to the 7 principles of love, that is actually tied up in a piece of literature that my father will have coming out a little bit later on in the year. So I'm not trying to oversaturate it, because what we'd like to also do is we're going to create some content on Patreon and some of your other subscription-based platforms. And also we want to lean into some live shows and stuff coming towards the end of the year. So all of these questions, we want to kind of just set the groundwork really for you all to kind of understand how it's going to be, and obviously the depth of wisdom that you have. And then we're going to kind of make sure that everybody can get a little piece of that. So that's why, for all of you people asking, more marriage, it's coming.
Yeah.
We're just gonna, soon, people, soon. So Dad,
Yes.
I don't want to obviously waste too much time on the basis that I'm losing you for 10 days tomorrow.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. I am on my way to Zimbabwe.
No, I'm aware.
Bulawayo.
You just sounded very, very surprised that you sound like, it felt like, remember when I was talking about my little brother coming into the country jam, and he was like, I was like, Wallace is here. He was like, okay. It's just like, you're going to Zimbabwe tomorrow. He's like, okay. It's just like, I just gave him his own schedule. So you're going to Bulawayo?
Yeah, I'm going to Bulawayo. We have a 3-day convention going on there, so I am looking forward to seeing it, to being there, as well as the possibility. I've seen a couple of the big fives.
The big five?
Yeah, the elephant, the lion, etc., etc.
Oh, you want to go do some sightseeing?
That would be nice. I've been going there for quite a while, but they've never taken me to any of those things.
Have you ever asked them to take you?
I thought they should do it automatically.
Dad, people aren't mind readers. So if they're
So
not...
how come they take other people to things and they just do it?
Because some people lean into things that they think people want to do.
Right. I think what they do, they just decided that for as long as he's here, we're going to squeeze every minute out of him because we've got so many questions and stuff. We don't have time to go in the bush looking for animals.
But I'd also say this to you. With you just saying that, that tells me that when you go there, you have no personal balance. So you go there to serve, which
That's
is
right.
not bad. Well, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, no,
but
you're
in
right.
the basis of life,
Indeed.
balance should also permit that if you're there and you're ministering and you're working and you're serving, there must be a little moment where you can get a little respite, whatever that may be to you. So I think you being in this season and space where you're like, no, I'm going to come and I'm going to look after everybody, but also I'd like to look after myself a little bit.
Yeah.
Just a small
I think
sliver.
the time will come when I'm sure you'll make sure of that. That when I'm
That I will make sure of that.
Yes.
Please tell me
Yes.
how. Pray, do tell.
You said, now this is time for you to go and have your personal moment. Nobody asking you anything. You're not preaching or teaching. You're just gonna go and chill out.
I agree with you, but repeat after me, okay?
Yes, right.
Repetition creates habit.
Repetition creates habit.
Habit shapes mentality.
Habit shaped mentality.
Mentality determines character.
Mentality determines character.
Repetition creates habit.
Uh-huh.
So, if you program yourself to do something,
Right.
sometimes it gets locked in the software, right?
Okay.
And it becomes easier to perfect what you've practiced repetitively.
Indeed.
And as long as I've known you, you're the person, you punch the clock before you leave the house. So most people will get on the plane, enjoy the plane ride, land, get to the hotel, and then I'll have a day, and then the next day they punch the clock. No. The night before, you've punched the clock. So
Right.
for me, I like saying these things to you because I would like, in this season of your life, for you to not only work, but to enjoy the labor of your work. And sometimes it's in little
I wonder
moments.
if everybody got that little bit of thing that you just did.
How do you mean?
I mean, that sounds really good. I like it.
What bit?
I mean, the bit about season, about, repetition creates habits, habit creates, that.
Should we do it one more time together?
Yes, I
Okay,
think.
we'll look at the camera, but we'll say it
Yes,
together, okay?
okay.
So, with me, but through my dad. Everybody, repetition creates...
creates-
No. I'll say it,
Okay.
you repeat it.
Okay. All right, yes.
Backseat driver.
Okay.
Repetition creates habit.
Repetition creates habits.
Habit shapes mentality.
Habit shapes mentality.
Mentality determines character.
Mentality determines character.
What you repeat, you perfect.
What you repeat, you perfect. Now, you didn't say that in the first
Because I'm giving you the
time.
extras.
Are you hiding things from me now? Okay, let's continue.
What you repeat, you perfect.
What you repeat, you perfect.
What you repeat, you perfect. And then what you perfect becomes habit through subconscious thinking. It's in.
Yes.
And then your mentality is how you see yourself and the world around you.
Okay.
And your character is who you are.
Wonderful.
So that all comes from those first two steps of programming.
Yeah.
Repetition and habit.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I somehow think he make up the last two with,
What do
but
you
it
mean?
sounds good. It sounds
I have enough time for you. So, Dad, yesterday, I came in from dinner. I told you that I was at dinner yesterday. And I was watching the news.
Right.
Now, you and I know that we had set a completely different subject topic
Indeed,
for today.
yes.
And we spoke about it last night, and you only got the notes of the change about 10 minutes before Jamal's camera went on. Mm-hmm. But I was so taken back by the news coverage. I've been seeing stuff on my phone, online and stuff.
Right.
But I hadn't had a chance to see it contextualized, obviously, within a news cycle. Dad, to see the level of unrest,
Yes.
destruction, hopelessness.
Right.
Because I think sometimes it's very easy to become obsessed by the manifestation of the thing to the point that you lose visibility of what caused.
What causes it, that's correct.
Now, obviously, on the basis of kind of how I think, I'm seeing the unrest and I'm seeing the bad things that's happening, but I'm saying, okay, that's the expression of the root of the problem.
Internal problems, yes.
And I kind of set a little timeline from the basis of, so within the news cycle, Dad, about 10 days ago, I believe there were 3 Asian men that were coming back into the country from Manchester Airport. And from the media coverage that was released initially, all we saw was the police, namely one police officer, aggressively apprehending, but also basically beating
of course
on this gentleman, stamping on his head, punching. Now, as you normally would have it, the Asian community, or not only the Asian community, but the society's community in general that kind of saw it, absolutely was like, no. Subsequently, extra video footage was released to which you were able to see that there was an altercation that happened. So, in the nature of this happening, the confrontations happened, but because of that, we've only seen certain bits of media that's then fueled how people have reacted to the situation. And we've also spoken about the difference between reactions and responding. Then you have that heightened situation, and the Manchester Mayor, Andy Burnham, is calling for everybody to be calm. The actual men are calling for the community to be calm, for everybody to calm down. And then, Dad, just as it seems like they're getting a handle on it, you get this situation in Southport where this young boy, for whatever reason and cause, has murder and destruction in his heart.
Right.
And I think the thing that makes it so heinous is the fact that anything to do with children, Dad, it creates a certain context.
Absolutely.
Where, as a society, and also I think as humans, we become very unforgiving when children are involved, because we generally look at them as innocent beings that are to be protected until they come to such a time of adulthood. So, Dad, you have the Manchester Airport situation with the police and the Asian men. Then you have the Southport situation where the 3 girls are murdered and multiple people are injured, and they've had to move the boys' parents out of their house into a safe house because of fear of reprisal.
Right.
And then yesterday, Dad, what I saw that was going on, not only, I thought it was a regional thing that was happening in the north, and then the coverage was of what was going on in Plymouth, which is the opposite end of the country, Dad. Which immediately tweaked my kind of mind to be like, this is a movement. This isn't just just civil unrest.
Absolutely.
This is an absolute movement. And then you get the head of X, which was formerly known as Twitter, Mr. Elon Musk, tech genius, billionaire, turns around and says, civil war is inevitable. Now, add on top of that, Dad, even though we don't talk about it, we had COVID a couple of years ago.
Right.
You and I were very blessed to be fair, you allowed me to move into your office.
Yes.
And we spent pretty much the whole period together. creating, building,
Yeah.
fortifying soul and spirit in the right way.
Indeed.
But there were so many people, Dad, that I think went through so much. And because everybody was just trying to survive, I don't think there was any real due diligence done to look at what the effects of locking people in their houses.
Yes.
And allowing them to feed on this digital food, Dad.
That's right.
Morning, noon and night. For some people, they were feeding on fear all day.
Yes, yeah.
For other people, they were feeding on anger.
Yes.
For other people, some were feeding on peace, Dad.
Yes.
Some were feeding on love.
Violence, yeah.
Some were feeding on violence. And I don't think that we talk about it enough in terms of when people go, oh, it makes no sense why this is happening. And I'm like, well, if you just look at what's happening, you can sit there and say that. But if you look at the timeline, there's cause for understanding and concern. So I wanted to ask you firstly, what do you make of it, Dad?
Well, there are multiplicity of thoughts that this whole thing is generating, and of course you've cut across many barriers.
Yeah.
But as I thought about it, I think, well, it leaned perfectly into some of the topics we have been discussing about the past, present, and the future.
Yeah.
In that, when you take, for example, let's take the first one, which is the police.
Yeah.
And the first narrative that came out, which I think was extremely irresponsible by the producers and the powers that be, to only show that first clip before they were balanced.
It contextualizes the whole
Absolutely.
thing.
And that is where we are saying, in whether relationship, your job, whatever it is, there has to be balance. It's that which make everything make sense. And when that did not happen, immediately you trigger people's emotion.
Yeah, you do.
That's what I mean, by what they saw, especially from those who are supposed to be protecting you and being responsible for the well-being of society. However, when somehow later they then show the other thing that the police were going through, and you're thinking, my goodness me, not that you justify any form of, excessive violence, but they had to defend themselves.
Yeah.
And I can understand why those brothers were so eager to say, calm down, because
they knew what was coming, Dad.
When they knew that they, in fact, were the culprit, and the ones who were being more dangerous to the police than what the police were to the individual, it present a very different concept of the whole thing. However, that, I think, you couldn't get away from it. And it really triggers people's emotion for and against on either side, in that when you saw both situations, you realize that, hang on here, what was intended by who has gone out. And it is already gone into people's mind as to what is going on. Now, no one gave any kind of clarity as to why those people were behaving so badly at the airport in the first place. You know what I mean? That is the thing. And if we move on from that, because I think we got the general gist of that, if you move on to the boy who did what he did in school, again, I think that the powers that be was complicit. And by not quickly explaining who it was, what it was, because of course people can suffer from all kind of traumatic situations, mental issues that they have.
Well, we know that the boy was from a place that we've seen a vast amount of government campaign to not send people that have come to this country to, Dad.
Indeed.
So then you're all, not to cut you at all, but you already, in terms of the mixing bowl that could be his life. Dad, you're already looking at trauma.
Yeah.
And what else has he seen in destructive senses that, like you say, if there's not been any form of therapy or treatment?
Yes. And when you look at his background,
Yeah.
had his background came to the forefront from the very onset of the crime, I believe that people would have been in a different mindset.
How so?
Now, because this boy wasn't just anybody. You see, he was in this program called Doctor Who.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Now, you don't get into a program
entertainment.
that is so popular, especially with children, if you were not in a good place, so to speak. However, if it was projected that, look, this boy is suffering from some kind of mental situation, people could easily understand that, because it's not the first time that people have gone off the rail and do damages and hurt other people. But once they were balanced in understanding what happens, but it was left for people to draw their own conclusion. And given the kind of crime where we have seen it around the world, where people were being hurt for religious, because of certain religious belief, then it immediately pulled people in to thinking that it might be another one of those one like what happened in Manchester before. Yeah. So again, I see complicity there as well, in that people were not exposed to the full back end of the story, which could bring balance to people's thinking. And so it, that sort of went on. And I believe that compounded by the pandemic situation that is now really creating this mental condition that we are experiencing. It is an incredible cocktail of emotions that need to be addressed. Now, we have just come through an election, and I think personally, this is me, I'm not particularly...
Just say this is him. At Bishop L.A. Williams.
No, I am not sort of alluding to any particular, particular party, but I think that perhaps the leaders of this present government is missing an important factor, and that is, you're not just dealing with people who are just going out to be criminals. You're dealing with a mental. It has been said that people are suffering from various mental health problems from on every level, from politics to social to sports, and these are what is happening with people now. Yes, the court is there, and they are to...
That's the scary thing, that this upscaling of powers to send people to more isolation in a more aggressive way.
Yeah, no. People need help. And what we are expecting our government to do is to reach out to people using the tools of the community that are there, from the charities and the health and all of that, to help to bring and address this problem. Prison isn't going to work. It's not going to do it.
And it's already overcrowded.
Exactly.
What are they going to start doing, Dad? Doing tents and teepees in the yard? But do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes. So I think it's important. Now, as regard to this man, this gentleman in America, I had to struggle to find the right word.
I know. I could see you really.
Yes.
that.
Yeah. Yes. So
I was like, whoa.
Calm down.
We'll just call him Elon.
Exactly. That's his name. Yes. And so when you're going to talk about civil rights, now we're talking about the British Empire here. We're talking about the British who had an empire. Unfortunately, as much as people may have a few pounds or dollars, they have never been an empire. You know what I'm saying? They have dealt with wars on every continent, so to speak, and come out
kind of
You know,
okay.
It's a venue. So I don't see how a few people running up and down, you know, lighting fires here and there, is going to plunge this great country into a civil war. No way. You know, we have had past experience, and it has been controlled. Like, take for example, in I think it was 2011
When we had the
exactly, and while this prime minister was the one of the chief person responsible for prosecuting, and he might, you know, clearly done a great job, but he wasn't a prime minister then.
No.
Yes, I mean, now he's a prime minister. He's for the whole country, the good, bad, and the ugly. You know, there are differences. You know what I'm saying? So he has that responsibility.
Dad, not to cut you, just as what you were speaking about there, because I think you made an amazing point. In 2011, you're in a position where you are a tool within the chest.
You did.
And then now you find yourself in an elevated position where you are the toolsmith.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even in some of what I see them, they're trying to respond, but you can see that they're actually reacting. Mm-hmm. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Please, make more noise. Please. It's not like we're trying to do a poddy or anything here, and then people across the world.
I was wondering if you're going to say something.
Dad, take a minute, please. I wish you could all see Jan's face right now. He was just like,
you know, it's like, you know, what is he going to say to you?
Jan, go on, take a bow. Take a bow, Jan. Take a bow.
I had flashback to when my
That I sat there and I just went, you two are colluded this morning.
Oh man!
So, where were we before he started doing his own little noise party? What was I saying?
No, you're talking about the tool in the chest box.
No, Dad, let him. What were we talking about? The tools in the chest box. Yeah, out there. Dad, I think like our Prime Minister has to understand that I think he sees himself as a father, yet he needs to see himself as a shepherd.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Because as a father, you only have to take care of your house. As a shepherd, your sheep will roam across so much. And Dad, you sometimes have to be okay with leaving the 99 in the pen.
Yeah.
And I know that rogue, annoying sheep, you've done hooked it so many times, Dad.
Yeah. Yeah.
But unfortunately, and fortunately, that's the job.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, threatening people. I mean, these people are clearly not afraid of prison.
Dad,
otherwise, they would not be going out.
I'm talking big chairs they're throwing at the police, you know.
You know what I'm saying? And burning things and destroying buildings. You know, to threaten them with the very thing that they're not afraid of is really not very clever. I mean, what people are looking for is somebody to help them, as I said, rebalance. You know, they're dealing with the traumas, and anyone who would think that those 2-3 years of shutdown is just going to disappear and has no impact on people, like you know, they're really deluded. You see, so it is what one is going to do. And I believe, if I had to advise the Prime Minister, is that there are people out there that has been working with people that goes through both spiritual, mental, physical, and social problems. And it's not that the government is even paying them to do it. People like myself. And
most of the charities.
And all the other charities that are the churches that are doing it for years and saving the government millions, in fact billions actually, the last time they checked. So you've got these at your disposal, you know what I mean? Empower them to reach people, to go to the grassroots where most of the powers that be in sitting in the House of Lords and in Parliament is not going to go, with all the best of intention, with even the ministers in their local constituency. They don't reach majority of the people. I've never seen my MP since I've been in Cambridge. Wow. You know what I'm saying? Wow. Right? You don't know when he's around or when he's not. So these are where you need at this point in time to reach out and reach down to people so as to let them know that, hey, you know, we're going to get through this together. Yeah. Yes, I mean, not as I said, one threatening this one, we're going to burn this down. The other one said, we're going to lock you up in prison. We're going to, then you got those from across the waters not thinking about their own problem that they've got there, with their own situations. Yes, and those were yes. So no, we can manage our business. So, yeah.
I want to ask you a very, very deep question. One of the things that shocked me yesterday was the amount of, and in their mind they'll think they're men, they're not, they're boys. That the amount of boys that resembled students of mine that I taught when I was at Olive.
Yes.
Now, do you remember when sometimes you take me to Olive in the morning?
Yes, I remember.
And you'd pull up and stop the car and you'd look at me to be like, you see that handle? You pull it and then you push the door and you get out. and you'd be like, there were times where in the mornings you'd just turn off the engine and you'd be like, we'd have a little talk because you realise that, Dad, once you cross that gate, and at that time obviously you're dealing with disenfranchised young people that have been kicked out of mainstream schooling. And a lot of those kids that find themselves in those situations, it's really a cry for help.
Yes.
And for care and love and mentoring. But I was aware of the toll, Dad, that it took, right? And sometimes, they would see me in your car and they'd come and surround the car and they loved you because you've got all the energy for them. Plus you've only got to talk to them for 10 minutes, then you're going for the rest of your day.
Yes.
Whilst I'm dealing with them all day.
It's like a boost,
Just a little.
Boost them for the day, yeah.
But one of the things that was massive, especially in our staff check-ins, was radicalization. There was a massive drive to limit the amount of, there's a genre of music called drill music.
Right.
And the basis of this genre of music, that it's come up as the newest kind of musical sound form of young people, by and large, because there's a lot of what I call gang activity and culture within the bigger cities, but it's also breeding itself outside because there's this other term called county lines, which means that the bigger cities send out their little soldiers to supply drugs and to create kind of little leadership holes in other spaces, and they spread out their network. So within this, a big drive was to limit the amount of drill music that's being played, because these kids are going home and listen to it 24/7.
Yeah.
And the basis of most drill music was to talk about conflict, either that's been had, is presently being had, or is going to happen. So a lot of these kids are listening and regurgitating music that's basically talking about killing, Dad.
Of course.
And murder and getting money by whatever means, and looking and objectifying women in a way that will not see you build the type of relationships we were talking in the first 3 episodes.
Yeah.
What scares me, Dad, is that we've heard a lot about what I call Islamist radicalization.
Yeah.
Yet we haven't necessarily looked within our own cupboards and stores.
Of course.
Because you said something that was very potent, I think, in the beginning of your explanation, where the media, which, and because I work in media, Dad, I understand the checks you have to make before you release a story.
Indeed.
These people aren't not in communication with the press and with governments and officials and so on and so forth. So based on what you were saying, who ratified?
Exactly.
Firstly, allowing a story to come out to which that whatever piece of it you show, it's going to contextualize something. And what got me was and it was all kind of coming together as you were speaking. You have the first news cycle, which is these 3 men have been set upon by these white police officers.
Indeed.
You get a whole community and basically demographic that now sit there and say, we're being persecuted, let's react.
Yeah.
Then you get the full context of the video, to which you're going to have a whole other group that maybe resembles some of what we're seeing now with
Indeed,
the
yeah,
unrest,
yeah.
that's now looking and going, look at these people coming in, deserving rights, wanting our jobs, so on and so forth. And obviously they're looking at the police, which, if I'm honest, 99% of them probably don't like the police either, Dad, but because they resemble more so what they look like, then it's almost like media finds itself in this place where it is feeding everybody's worst fears.
Yes.
And then, Dad, if the pandemic and lockdown has put everybody in this place where isolation is now normal, most of us live through the devices that we have. We also know, on the basis of information has come out, like how Cambridge Analytica was very present in the Brexit campaign, and how they worked with Dominic Cummings and others, and then how they then upscaled that plan and used it in the presidential election where Trump and Clinton were going against each other. So then, Dad, if they were able to send over 1 billion pieces of digital content, is it really that difficult to comprehend that you can also send this level of what I call indoctrination?
Of course.
To these young men,
indeed,
who the vast majority of them don't have positive male role models in their life, may not have a present male father in the house. Dad, are the government wrong for not looking in their own house and realizing that they may be guilty of something they've accused other people of?
Yeah, I personally think there is a lot in that, and it is, again, what we're experiencing is the lack of feeling that you are governed by a group of people that should be looking out for your best interests. But instead, it is, they're more concerned about their own particular image, or their own particular, how people think about them, the opinion that people have of them. And so the world, namely in our country, is like, as you make mention, sheep without a shepherd. You see, and that is really what people are asking for, is that, look, you know, most of the government has not done as much as they should in terms of caring for people locally and otherwise. And so people are not overly, it's shocked.
Yeah, they're not leaning into it.
They're almost sort of expected. But here you are, you came into power on a subject and a mantra of change. And so people were very optimistic. I mean, people who never vote one way for generation change because they got really into this notion of change and believe that is going to be better. Because you don't want change for worse. No. You expect it to get better. And what you're looking for is somebody saying to you, how can we help you? And if you don't know, then we have some ideas of how we think we can help you, because those ideas have been tested and proven. In fact, so much so that is what has kept things on a level until now. But there is this removing certain culture, removing certain involvement of people, and especially if they think you are, in their word, religious. Yet at the same time, you see young people that says don't have any kind of moral, most of them lack that moral compass.
They have no anchor, Dad.
Indeed, in which to build their hope. And that is why, for me, even what we do, I think it's so important for young men and young women to know that what they're seeing out there on the television and all that's going on, in the world, is not the be all and end all. Now, what I'm saying that emotionally,
Yeah.
people are in a traumatic state. Why? Because when you've got, say, for example, another country threatening, you know what, we're going to look how we can send a nuclear warhead into your country. You got another one down there killing off people, creating more potential instability.
It's on a knife edge,
So
Dad.
everything, people are seeing that. People are hearing the narrative. And those who are sometime dissecting it, you know, it's really not because there is a deep heartfelt for people,
Yeah.
but it's just like, you know, it's my job, it's what pays my bills, so let me just go there, rattle off whatever I feel like rattling off, and give me my money and I'm gone. You see, now, here I believe that things like this can help people to understand that there is balance in life. And yes, you're right. What these children, young people have been fed on, it's incredible. And you're seeing it materializing now. But I do believe and I do think that change can come. You know,
I agree.
Change can come.
I agree.
And it is what support people, especially the grassroots people, are going to be given.
Yeah.
I mean, you take a typical example. You hear about knife crime, and it is in general associated, you know, with people of color.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. Yeah. Now, I'm in a city, and I've gone through hoops and loops trying to say to the government, let's have a community center.
Right.
I mean, where kids like those can come. I mean, not just kids of color, but because our city is a multicultural city. So I said, but it needs to have something that brings balance to let those kids realize that they didn't just drop out of space. They came from somewhere, you know, and help them to understand that they can be more than what some aspect of society is telling them that they should be. Drug pushers, be murderers, carry knives around with you, and if you want to be anything, that is how you got to go. It's not true. And most of those who have gone what I call the normal way succeed. You've never seen them being given the chance to tell their story. You know what I mean? You know, you've been with, you know, growing up in school and around kids that wielding knives and all sorts, but you know, you didn't have to ascribe.
But Dad, can I be honest with you? I didn't have a compromised sense of self, and I never allowed my value system to be determined by anybody else.
Right. But why that though?
Because I had a father that allowed me to understand my sense of self through modeling.
Indeed. Indeed.
For everything you told me, the things that stuck and then became fundamentally foundational was because of repetitious modeling, Dad.
Indeed. Indeed.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
And whilst I think the idea of, let's say, a community centre is amazing, Dad, if you're afraid to leave your house, are you coming to a community centre?
Yeah, see, it's not just where leaving your house, is where you're going to.
No, Dad, I understand that. But even before mentally,
Yeah.
you can get to the place of where you're going to, you have to be prepared to leave where you are.
Absolutely.
So what I'm trying to say is that if adults are at the moment glued to
Yes.
these electronic whatevers, and I see adults, Dad, that have, what's the word, oversubscribed to this isolationist idea of self.
Yeah.
We all have our friendship groups, whatever WhatsApp groups that may be, and we all have our social circles, we have our emotional support systems. For a lot of people, I think that's why social media is such a massive thing for people and why it's creating havoc, because some of the things that you're meant to mine and create in your house, we now get online.
Indeed.
I don't need you to emotionally support me because I've got a group over here that I think, or I comment on this site or this page, and I get my emotional support from that. I don't need love from you anymore because I get attention from this space and that space that now feeds the sense of worth that I want for myself, which means, and we've always spoken about this, the thing that made Adam so great in the book of Genesis, he would hang out with God every day.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, Dad, I could sit here and say to you that if he's in and amongst God's creation, one could suggest that he's hanging out with God because he is living within the reflection of God's manifest power, glory, and genius.
Indeed.
Yet, Dad, an infinite God would choose to set aside every day an amount of time to be like, I'm going to go hang out with Adam. And so I guess the question I wanted to ask you, I've got a couple of them, by the way.
Okay, that's all right.
First question. I fundamentally believe that this platform and what we're doing and conceptually why we're trying to do it is we want to help.
Yes.
Now, the Prime Minister usually has 7 minutes for every meeting.
Yeah.
If you could give 3 pieces of succinct advice to him, because you know he's having these Cobra meetings where they're all figuring out these new powers they want to give, and they got the standing army over here, and they got the territorial army over there, and then they got the airborne army over here. I obviously embellish a little bit. What are the 3 pieces of advice that you would give to not only our Prime Minister but our leadership right now?
Yeah.
Number 1.
I would say to him that he has to be a shepherd.
I love that.
Yeah, that's the first thing that he has to be. And to be a shepherd, you have to find pastures green. So you got to know where you're taking people to and what hope they're going to have when they get there. Are they going to have something to eat? Are they going to have something to drink? Are they going to be able to lay down in safety? Yeah. And third...
Oh, that was number 1.
So, no, okay.
Number 2. So number 1 is he has to be a shepherd.
Yes.
He has to know what he's trying to do. Do you know where the new pastures green are?
Indeed.
And is there resource and supply there? Number 2.
Hope.
Ooh.
He has to give hope to the people, young, middle-aged, and senior people.
I love that you said
because,
that.
Yes. I got it. Yeah. I mean, because without hope, people die quickly in despair. And of what we are experiencing is a sense of hopelessness manifesting itself.
You can feel it, Dad.
Yes, indeed, in people's world. And finally is discipline. You see, we are in a world where there is no discipline in anything.
Question. When you talk about discipline, are you talking about discipline on the basis of corrective...
No.
Consequences for corrective behavior, or are you talking about discipline on the basis of commitment to
life?
I just wanted to.
You see what I mean? And this is where, I have my views about our brother Sunak, but one of the things that he was about to initiate was the national service.
I didn't think it was a bad idea, Dad.
That for me
didn't think it was a bad
would
idea.
be the greatest thing when he came up with that notion, because if people, young people and everybody do not have that discipline and purpose in their life, you see, because what that thing that did, it gave people a purpose. It gave those who were not qualified, it gave them qualification. Those who were not skilled, it gave them skills. And so
also that it teaches you something that you need for life.
For life, that's it.
And I'm talking about either as a skill or a mindset, Dad.
Absolutely.
That's the big thing that, even when I was teaching these kids, Dad, the first lesson, and you saw some of the textbooks I used to bring back, the first lesson I taught them, repetition creates habit, habit shapes mentality, mentality to character.
Yeah.
Dad, the first thing I realized, how weak mentally they were.
Yeah.
Dad, some of the stuff that, at their age, Dad, I was already traveling the world and already doing stuff to scale. And a lot of that obviously because I'm in a certain mental space, but...
And the fourth thing I would have done,
Third.
even though is that third?
Sure.
Okay.
On to three.
I think he's changing, the numbers.
No,
So I can keep talking.
The first one you said is that our Prime Minister
Yeah.
needs to be a shepherd. The second thing you said is that we need discipline. And you said that what Mr. Sunak did with the proposal of national service was a great way in that direction. And I was talking to you obviously about them.
Okay.
And then now we're on the third thing.
all
Don't
right.
call me out or like that. And
Okay, all right. I give in to that one reluctantly, of course. Now, exposure.
oh, how so?
You see, most of the immigrants, not these ones that you call the boat people and sea people and river people and whatever they call them.
Dad, who's called? No, do you know what? Keep going. I don't even want to go back there. Keep going.
Right. But the ones who, like in my generation,
Right.
who came to this country.
The Windrush generation.
Yeah, well, I mean, even beyond that,
okay.
the Windrush, etc. Because the Windrush was in the 50s, 60s.
Okay.
I came like in the 70s, etc.
So Windrush Mark II.
Indeed.
Forgive me.
I'm not going to argue.
Forgive
with
me.
that.
I didn't do it on purpose. It's just a bit of banter between me and my dad.
Okay, all right.
No, there's some people that will be like, "Oh, I'm gonna talk about that." So I just thought, you know what? Let me just
Exactly. So what happened is that we had an exposure.
Right.
I mean, I was 17 when I came here. Yeah. And the you know what he's doing? He's saying I had an afro and I have a bell.
You should have seen the flower shirt, bro. Jam. That's why I don't know why my dad's talking about your tan. Just be like, and your flower shirt, though.
Yes.
Lord, that's my
You
bad.
see, so, but the exposure of coming to somewhere different.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, so in Jamaica, you wake up to the sunshine.
Yeah.
You wake up to fruits and vegetables of every kind. You wake up to the rain falling and it's warm, so you walk in it. It was all there.
Yeah.
You see? Except, you didn't have some other aspect like the kind of jobs that you would like to maintain, the kind of life you would like. But when you came and you get that exposure to somewhere that was different, and you see how people have to discipline themselves in making things work for them, you see, it gives you a whole new mindset, and that's where you have balance, you see. So most of the problem that you are seeing and experiencing, especially among people, the ethnic minorities, is really not those who came here. It's really those who were born here, and as you said, fed and all the garbage that's coming through on the social network. So give them that exposure. Yeah, I think that if people were to go to Africa, go to Asia, go to the Caribbean and see other young people, see how people are having to work and value what they've got. You're gonna have, and that's why I think the national service would have been such a great idea. Imagine you put a few thousand on a warship going to this place, or in the plane going to that place.
Dad, these kids that we have today, put them on a warship.
Of course.
I
mean, when a few, projectile coming from a
No, but can I listen? You said something that was amazing on this level, Dad. At the age of 6 or 7, because of the nature of your job, you and my mum did something that for some parents they don't have the confidence to do.
Yeah.
You were very aware of the environment you'd allowed your children to grow up in, and you would give us a certain amount of freedom and space within the social and work environments that we existed in, which taught us how to build confidence.
Yeah.
Dad, the amount of times that I would be, let's say, in children's church, and someone would say something to me that I didn't like. Now, I couldn't have been any more 6, 7, 8, and I'd be like, I'm talking to an adult, you know, Dad, and I'd look at them and I'd be like, do you know who my dad is?
Yes.
Dad, I'm talking colleagues of yours. If I didn't like the way they were talking to me, I'd be like, you see that guy there? No, not him. Him. Because, Dad, I had a certain... Now, I got in trouble for some of those speeches and conversations because you were like, I understand the confidence, but the execution.
Yeah.
So, but what you allowed me to do was, I saw myself living in an upscaled version of what I knew, which allowed me to create balance based on practical experience, right, Dad? So in terms of what you're saying, I think there are things that young people need now that they're not exposed to. Now, obviously, the concept that you had in terms of putting them on a warship and sending them across there, like, okay, I'm not sure we can get that through Parliament. But but here's the other thing, Dad, there is a version of what you've said. Me personally, I would tell Sakia Starmer, every young man, and age them between 21 and what is it, 16?
16, yes.
Anyone taken in between 21 and 16 are put in a mandatory military program.
That's it.
Dad,
that's it.
Send them to Greg. Jam. So one of the guys in our church, he's quite high up in the army, and when he talks about the expeditions they do,
amazing.
Listen, what we think is going on in the army, it's way tougher than that. It's either make it or don't make it. And I would look at some of those young men in the care of someone like Brother Greg, Dad. And you'd sit there and go, I could see you getting
mentoring.
That work. Oh my gosh, Dad.
The whole mentoring concept.
And it's a person that will talk to them from a basis that they can understand, because if you feel like you can touch my pain, I'm going to be comfortable revealing my vulnerability to you.
Yes.
But if I don't feel like you can understand my pain, that's why I think my ex-students, they gravitated to when, because you're not trying to interact with them from a basis of telling them what they already know.
That's right.
You're actually trying to validate the experience they have, but you're also saying, I've got something for you that can take you from where you are here to the next place. So the first thing I was going to say was, Dad, from 21 to 17, I think they should be enrolled without anything to a military program. And those that are between like 14 and 16, Dad, you have some of these, like you've got air cadets. Not only that, I think other programs can be made where we could be teaching programmers and coders, because when I looked at some of the nefarious characters they were catching on camera, Dad, some of these people are linked to organized crime groups that are happening in Russia. Some of the dissidents that are happening in other spaces in the world. And so, I think, like you said, the term of the concept of exposure is a massive thing. There's one more question I want to ask you before we leave, because we've got to get you out of here, because I know you have a Bible study to do and some other stuff. Dad, how and what would you advise fathers to say to their sons to fortify their minds in moments like this? And also, how would you advise as well mums that have sons, and for whatever reason, maybe, there may not be the presence of a grandfather, a father, an uncle, or even, a male mentor that can help? What pieces of advice would you give them, Dad?
Well, I personally think that if fathers in particular want to be responsible, and I use the word wants to be responsible, because whenever time a child, especially a son, reaches certain age, because of the biological changes that are taking place both in body and mind, there seems to knock head together, for want of a better phrase, they're at variance with each other. And those younger ones feel that, I can determine my future, my destiny by myself. I don't need you or I need anything from you to do so. I think fathers have to let children know that the things that most people regard as the source and the basis of life, namely having money, having a nice car, is really not what it is. And they have to be able to get the child and explain and then, really drill down into them. And I don't mean doing it on the basis of when you were rearing them. They're now, in principle, past 16, they're an adult. You see? And it is finding the time to sit down as man to man and talk without him thinking the father is lecturing him about something, but talking as friends, or talking on the basis that you've got something that I need to hear, I've got something I need to say. And so you bring that together, and this could play out in various ways, whether sports, whether traveling together, whether just say, okay, tell you what, let's get away from the influence of the environment in which and that was one of the reasons why I led into exposure. Which could really go a long way, because what the conflict that exists with father and children when they were teenagers and growing up, when they get past a certain age, that conflict seems to disappear as reality begins to cut in, as they begin to be called upon to pay their bills, find money for food, look
to
after,
live.
To live. Then suddenly, that reality cuts and it's like, okay, I can't go back to my father or my mother because I was so nasty to them. I was very, very obnoxious where they were concerned, but then they sort of feel stuck. Who do I go to? And that is where I think fathers have to reach out to them, irrespective of what has gone on in the past. And that's where forgiveness is such a powerful tool to reach into the past and to bring people together in the present. You know what I mean? And that's what they have to feel. That, okay, yes, you did that. We were disappointed. We were disappointed when you had to go to prison. We were disappointed when you were caught by the police with knives. We were disappointed when we know that we have spent so much time and money sending you to college and we don't say anything for it. Yes, but guess what? It's experience. And now, what are you going to take that experience and do with it? And it is that level of understanding that we have to bring young men and women to come to understand that, yes, there is a group of people out here called fathers and mothers, even if they're not even yours, but there should be exposure to others who can stand in the gap for your mother and for your father and say, look, you can be loved. I can hug you. You see what I mean? I can let you know that you are a son, you're a daughter, and feel really cared for. And a typical example of this, I remember when I went to the Philippines, many years ago, 11 years ago. And
how did you go from 30 to 11? Private joke. My bad. The maths was so quick. 30, 11 years ago. 30, 11. Is that even a number, Jesus?
Because there are some things in my life that
is fine. It's fine.
It's 30 years back. So,
it came from...
You're quickly arranging things, anyhow. So 11. And I remember, how shocked those little Filipinos were.
What, to see this black
man?
When
they saw this black man, not only just an ordinary black man, but a big black man, you know what I mean? And they would, in the street, they would gather around me, and I was looking at their parents. It was interesting to see them looking up at me and to think, where did you come from? We have not seen anything like you before. And they would gather around. And the parents, whether it was out of embarrassment or they themselves were intrigued, but they would stand there. And eventually, the way they take me on board as a father is still absolutely unbelievable, even till this day. You've got those babies who were 5, 6, 7, now they are like 17, 18, and they would refer to you as Daddy Bishop. That's what they would call you. And that is the power. If you get within certain circles, and that is why I mentioned about, say, the community centers, that people need to know when they are down and out, when they don't know where to go, when they don't think anyone cares about them. There is a place they can come and sit down, and if they are broken, somebody can give them some as a hug and say, look, mentor them to get back, to fix, put the broken pieces together.
I think that's something that is fundamentally needed in society right now, Dad. We have lost our sense of community.
Yes.
And because we are so individual, that I think we have simulated forms of it.
Yes.
We see it in moments. The football happens, England look like they might do okay. Okay, let's all get out together and we can all be disappointed by the end of the game. Or
absolutely.
There will be a bank holiday or something. Okay, we don't have to go to work. We can all, and we have simulations of community, but the reality is we don't trust our neighbours.
Yes.
Dad, we used to have Mrs. Summerlin on our left and Sylvie and Jim on our right.
Yes.
There were times when I was sick from school. Sylvie would come into the house and she would make my jacket potato and tuna because Mum was at work and you were maybe away. And that was the basis of community. And if it wasn't Sylvie, it could have been Joe and Pauline at number 6, or the Jenkins at number 2, Mrs. Quantzer at number 90.
Of course.
So the basis of community was much bigger than what we kind of know now. Most of us kind of hide from our neighbours, or we kind of step away. The other thing I wanted to say was that I think, based off of what you said, it's through sincere interaction that allows for the basis of lasting transformation.
Absolutely. Say that again. Sounds good.
It's through sincere interaction that we create the basis for lasting transformation.
Absolutely.
And I think that word you gave to fathers to check in for real.
Yes.
Beyond what we think we're supposed to do and say.
Yeah.
I'm talking like I'm a father. I'm not a father. But beyond what you all... I ain't got no kids hanging around.
I think you're late.
Yeah.
No, just while you're thinking on that, one of the things.
Thank you, everybody, for this week's episode of Yo Pops. Why?
Yes, let me just say one thing finally.
Is it about what we've been talking about, right?
No.
We've got to stay on topic.
No, yes, I'm not gonna go down.
Cool.
You're dead end road. I'm not gonna go down there. Okay. Now, if I had to advise the mayors or even our cities, because sometimes the government on a whole don't have the wherewithal to mobilize on a national scale. But if you, just as how they are now trying to do devolution, even within cities, if Cambridge, for example, although our crime level with youth and violence and guns and stuff isn't as chronic as in some other places. But you imagine if everyone within the range group, the age group you talked about, ever did any crime where they're required to go to prison, they were then put on this program that we just mentioned. And it would then be a model for other cities to see that it works. The third thing I thought, why doesn't the government, for example, have every person that owns a car in whatever city they are, that car plate reflects that city. Okay. So therefore, if you drive out of Cambridge and into then you immediately the cameras and the powers that be you're going to flag it up.
Got you.
What are you doing here?
But Dad, you know we want the criminals to watch this as well because they need help too. And right now they're like, Bishop Williams, shut up. They're gonna know what. But you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Yeah.
You're not wrong. But also, did we not even have simulations of that in lockdown when we heard certain things that like, okay, we're going to kind of cordon off this area, and if you live here, you won't be able to go there. And I do think you're right. I think that if they're going to be, and my thing is this, it's not just law through authoritarian order.
Precisely.
Dad, there is, the reason why I could adhere to 97% of the rules you and Mum set in the house.
97?
It could be 4 or 3, but let's say 7. I don't want to scare you. Was because fundamentally I knew it was for my own good.
Yeah.
I didn't have parents that abused me. I didn't have parents that mistreated me. I didn't have parents that didn't show love and affection towards me. It doesn't mean that I didn't have moments that I didn't enjoy. Or even didn't understand.
Indeed.
But fundamentally within the root and the essence of my upbringing and my experience of parenting, I realized that the borders and boundaries that had been put in place was because to keep me safe.
Yes.
Yeah, I still managed to jump in the milkman's cart and drive it and call the...
And other things, of course.
Couple. Yo.
Dangerous stuff. I mean, we were the
ones
we're traumatized.
Hey.
All right, I will.
You got to rest because you're on the plane tomorrow. So you just... Dad, I think this has been one of the most innovative conversations we've had. And I also think that there's things here that people in positions of responsibility can actually use even just for their own thought process. I want to thank you massively.
No problem.
And to all of you at home that are watching either on YouTube or you're streaming on Spotify or you're looking at this from our TikTok or our Instagram or Facebook, enjoy. Please subscribe, like and share to the Patreon content. And we have some other links and stuff in the descriptions in the bio, so please check them out and have a little look. It's bye from me and Dad.
Blessings to you all.
We'll see you soon. Bye guys.